Okay. Take your seats. Settle down. Welcome to the Road to Concord 101. This class is about all things connected to the path of history leading from Mount Sinai to Lexington Green and the individual liberty and freedom of man. If you're in the wrong place, feel free to get up and go see the registrar's office about dropping this class, preferably before you meet the professor. In the event you do not already know this, your professor is Joe Bakanovic, and he has a bit of a reputation on campus. He is most definitely an acquired taste, but if you can learn to tolerate him, he will make you better at defending your position, whatever it may be. I'm T.A. Charlie. I'm here to help the professor, but more importantly, you. We encourage you to take notes, and if you have questions, feel free to call. If you'd like the number, please email us. You can also post your questions in the comments, and we'll get the professor's attention. Part of my job is to let you know a little bit about your professor. As I said earlier, the professor has that bit of a reputation on campus. Not all of it is good. Let me help explain a little with a story about how I came to be the professor's TA. I was invited to attend one of his classes. My first impression of the professor was that he was an egotistical, narcissistic know-it-all. My intent after only a few minutes of class was never to attend another class with this professor. But after class, Professor Joe came up to me and thanked me for my class participation and told me that my perspective was valuable, and he asked me to keep coming to class. This actually took me back a little. To me, he seemed inconsistent. What was I to do? I decided to continue coming to his classes. As I did, I actually started doing what he does encourage students to do. Check behind him and see if what he is teaching is actually correct. I have done this over and over again, and generally speaking, I found what he teaches to be backed by sound, valid, and rational arguments from reputable sources. When I have challenged him and provided a sound, valid, and rational argument in opposition to his current position, he immediately changed his position and thanked me for correcting him. Why do I tell you all this? Professor Joe is a little rough around the edges, especially in the way he delivers his content. But if you stick with him and listen to what he teaches and then go and check his sources, you will likely find, as I did, he will help you better understand the world around you and help you to think better and hopefully to live better. At least that is our hope. One last note. This class builds on itself. Therefore, it is important to attend class regularly. We will not always have time to go over previously covered material. If you are new, we suggest you watch our older classes. We've created playlists to help you with those things we feel are of special importance. Now, let's get started.
Good morning. Welcome to the Road to Concord. It is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. I am Joe Bakanovic, your host.
It's my fault. I did it. We broke it. We're trying to fix it.
I don't know what's going on. I guess the banner's still running. All sorts of weird things are happening. By the way, I have a groundhog here today. His name is Freeze Your Heine Phil. And he stuck his nose out this morning and he said we're going to have 2 more weeks of Arctic weather. And my future electric bill immediately said, yeah! So it's still cold here, even with the heaters on. We're on emergency heat because, we use heat pumps down here and they don't work too well whenever the weather gets below, like 34, 35 degrees. So anyhow, if you're up north and you're on heating oil, you're probably like, what's your problem, Joe? Well, I don't live up there. All right. It's Monday, Manic Monday. Title of the show, without conspiracy or prophecy, I got nothing. I got nothing to explain what's going on in the world today. I don't. If you take those two things away from me, I got nothing. And if you allow me to have them, I'm going to tell you that the conspiracy is just the earth shadow of the prophecy. The earthly reflection of what's going on in the spiritual world around us. So they're one and the same as far as I'm concerned. I have a few things to share with you, and then we'll talk. I do have a little more philosophical bent on this later in the show. I'm in a rather subdued mood. It's probably a good thing. I'm on the Gateway Pundit. Trump signs an executive order declaring national emergency to address threats from Cuba. Threatens tariffs on countries giving oil to Cuba. Calls Cuba a failing nation. This is from January 29th. I was under the impression that we had more pressing problems here at home. Why are we worried about Venezuela and Iceland, Greenland, Cuba, whatever? What? And yet we're not really worried about Iran. The people are begging Trump to help them. They're in open revolt against the Iranian government and a repressive Islamic government. And Trump is busy running around with anything and everything but what, in my opinion, what he should be doing. I would like to see him help the Iranian people in whatever way he can without getting into a military engagement. Maybe instead of dropping bombs, we just drop them 10,000 rifles and some ammunition. Let them sort their own problems out. I would also like to see him handle what's going on in this country. We have an open revolt. We are in a civil war. And nobody wants to call it by its name. There are people warning us about this. This is from the Blaze Media. Conservatives panic that Trump is caving in Minnesota. But Glenn Beck explains his master strategy. Well, I'm sorry. I'm tired of this 4D chess. And I'm tired of that. Your white rabbit QAnon people suckered me one time. Shame on them. You're not going to do it again because then it'd be shame on me. I don't listen to Mr. Beck when it comes to these things anymore. I'd much rather listen to other people. But this one here, this is Blaze Media again. Trump must never cave to Waltz and the mob demanding ICE elimination. This is from the Blaze staff on January 30th. This is working with Tim Waltz risks rewarding activists who demand the elimination of ICE and brand political opponents as Nazis. This is true. And that is exactly what Trump has since done. I'll show you. This one is spot on. Blaze Media again. January 29th again. Steve Deace on Holman in Minnesota. Crush, don't quell these protests, or every red state will pay the price. That's true. We are never quelling their desire. We must defeat it. Had somebody tell me that if, not me per se, but it was a post on Facebook said if we never had the Democratic Party, we would have never had lynchings and the KKK and racism and all this other stuff. I posted wrong, capital letters, 3 exclamation marks. And then I told him because it wasn't the party, it's human nature. It's the avarices and the fear and the passion for power and money, the greed and lust for money and power. That's what did it. And I told that thread, I said if it hadn't been the Democrats, it would have been another political party, but they'd have done the same things because the human heart has not changed. And that's what Steve Deace is trying to warn us about. So what happens next? From the Gateway Pundit, breaking ICE and CBP to draw down numbers of forces in Minnesota after Tom Homan strikes a deal with state officials. Here are the details. I don't give a rat's rip at the details. This is a cave. No, it isn't, Joe. You got to. Yes, it is. Perception's reality. This is a cave. They caved. Trump blinked. He caved. From the Gateway Pundit, ICE wars. Minneapolis insurgents set up barricades, block cars, run license plates, check IDs. They've set up what they call autonomous zones, and they are policing it. They have taken territory. That is an act of war. They're wearing uniforms. They're trained. They're funded. They're organized. This is a civil war. This is not something for the Justice Department or the police to handle. You send in the United States Marine Corps and you tell them, stack bodies. Stack bodies. Take a few prisoners, find out who funded and organized this, go get them. When you find them, break into their houses and stack bodies. This is not, if you don't handle it this way, you have ceded to them and they win. They'll become emboldened. Trump should have learned this in 2020. He campaigned telling us he'd learned his lesson. He hasn't. He is demonstrating that he has not learned his lesson. Remember, I'm not supposed to be talking with conspiracy, because if I were to go with conspiracy, I'd say he learned his lesson very well. He was elected the first time to give us the COVID jabs, which reset the whole world order. And I'd tell you, he was elected this time to cement the takeover of that new world order and the final fall of the United States and usher in what will eventually become a new global caliphate of Islam. It's not going to be the socialist, secular humanist utopia that the communists and the progressives envision. They're going to be taken out by Islam, but nobody's paying attention to that. Gateway Pundit, Whiskey Tango 8 Hotel, Tim Waltz declares victory, bashes ICE and Trump administration ahead of meeting with Tom Homan. This doesn't end with Greg Bavino. January 27th, 2026. Ahead of when Holman and Trump pulled ICE out, or agreed to pull ICE out of Minnesota. Waltz declared victory, went into the meeting, got what he wanted. Steve Deace was right. Every red state is going to suffer. We're losing the country right now in real time. And you are still giving credit to Trump, saying he's got this handled. He handed you over to the COVID Nazis, and he's done nothing about it. Fauci is still free. He still hasn't arrested anybody dealing with Russiagate or anything else. The theft of the Joe, did you see what they just folks? It's all kabuki theater. Until cuffs go on bigwigs, major names, it's all kabuki theater. They're playing their part. But there are warnings out there that tell you the game's about to change. Nobody's paying attention. Here's one of them, Blaze Media. Hawaii tells Supreme Court our rights should exist only with permission. That is a declaration of secession. That's a violation of the Declaration of Independence, our founding document. Our rights are self-evident. They come from the Creator. We are now being told they should only come from government. And that's because the people who have taken over our government institutions think that they are the Creator. Literally. They are part and parcel of the new paganism. This should terrify everybody to the bone. This is fascism. This is communism. This is secular humanism at its core fundamental level. Man is his own God. This, in the state of Hawaii, is the triumph of Woodrow Wilson, John Dewey. And Satan. Gateway Pundit, January 27th. Video. Impeachment liar Alexander Vindeman announces bid for Senate, vowing to fight Trump. Calls Trump a tyrant and attacks ICE. He's running for senator in the state of Florida, if I remember correctly. In Florida. Why is he free to run for office? Why is he allowed to run for office, as he should be in jail for treason? He tried to overthrow an election. This idiot right here, remember him? Why isn't he in jail? Well, that's because he's part of the game. There's rules for you and I, and then rules for them. He's one of them. Blaze Media. Local sheriff refuses to help ICE with immigration enforcement around the Super Bowl. This is January 30th. So he's not going to help with ICE. That's an open violation of the Supremacy Clause. So now you have one state, Hawaii, saying that the declaration doesn't mean anything to them. We have elected officials in another state saying the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution doesn't mean anything to them. That's an open assertion that the Constitution is null and void. Gateway Pundit. Watch. Kathy Griffin urges fellow leftists to find out if their neighbors are MAGA and start to plan. Plan for what? They're telling you what they're going to do. Secular humanists always do this. When they finally seize power, they're going to purge you. We've shared the video of the FBI informant from the 70s with you before, from the Weather Underground, where they figure at least 10% of the population will have to be imprisoned or eliminated. That's the same percentage that the left always kills. That's the remnant. That's Yahweh's people. Or at least the bulk of them are. The free thinkers, the innovators, everybody that they cannot control. They're telling you they're going to do this. Honor the threat. Gateway Pundit. New York University professor wants quote-unquote Nuremberg trials for ICE and Trump officials when Dems retake power. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, over. ICE is enforcing the law. Many of those laws passed by Democrats. What these people are saying, what this professor is saying, is he no longer cares about the law. He's turned it on its head. This is Isaiah 5:20 and 21. Good for evil, evil for good. They are inverting reality and calling it justice. This man here should be immediately arrested for subversion, or woman, or whatever the heck it is. I don't care about the articles. You can read them if you want. Go look them up. Gateway Pundit again. We will find you. Democrat Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner vows to hunt down ICE agents for decades like Nazis were hunted. They are not Nazis. This man is. He's talking like them. He's vowing to act like them. He's vowing to act like the communists. He's a secular humanist. He is evil, by my definition. He is warning this country exactly what they're going to do. Honor the threat. He and anybody that votes for him or his party, there's no good in them. There's no good in them. Next one. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Death cult. Leftists fantasize on social media about assassinating President Trump. It's from January 29th. This is becoming prevalent everywhere in our media. It's part and parcel of the norm. You're going to get more and more of this. Why? Because you do nothing about it. Well, Trump's trying, Joe. I am so sick and tired of the Trump apologists. He has had everything he has needed for over a year now to do something about it. He has refused to act. So I don't care. Don't tell me it's rhinos. They are Republicans. I don't see anybody calling John Fetterman a dino. He's a Democrat. These people are Republicans. And sooner or later, you end up calling every Republican a rhino. They're all playing a part. Every last one of them. Whether they know it and they're doing it consciously and willingly, or whether they're dupes. They're all playing a part in a giant play. They have the authority. They have the law behind them. They will not do their job. They will not do their duty. I was watching a TV show. I think it's from Prime. Jack Ryan show. It's based on a character by Tom Clancy. There's 4 seasons of it on Prime. And I was watching the last one. It's wokeism for the right, for a conservative. So it's very subtle, slick, very good propaganda. But in there, one of the bad guys who says, like, look, this is the world we're in. This is realpolitik. Learn to live with it. Work within it. You can do good from within it. In other words, by becoming a devil, you can do the work of God. That doesn't work, but, And he asks the new CIA director, says, what are you going to do? You're going to arrest people like me? He goes, there's dozens of me. You get rid of me, there'll be another one to take my place. Why don't you learn to work within the system? Which, in other words, would mean become just like everybody else. He goes, are you going to arrest each and every one of us? And she says, yes, one by one. Now, she overcomes in the show the temptation to become just another politician. There's a point in this show before this scene where she says, yes, I'll arrest them all one by one. There's a point where she was telling the character of Jack Ryan, because he's a goody two-shoes. He always does what's right, no matter what. And he tells her, you're becoming just like them. And she says, well, if I don't get confirmed, I can't do. And that's when they say, well, I always thought you were one of the good ones. And she's not, or she's about to face the existential crisis. And in the show, she becomes a heroine because she chooses to do the right thing. And I'm sitting here thinking, why is this even an issue? I'm a former Marine. If I know what it takes to get the mission done, I do it. Even if it means I'm killed or wounded or lost in the process, because the mission is what matters. And the minute I tell myself, well, I got to make sure I survive, so I'll send somebody else to die. That way I can make sure the next mission gets done. I'm the most important one to get the mission done. As soon as you're no longer willing to sacrifice yourself to accomplish the mission, then you're no longer putting the mission first. You're putting yourself first. Believers have this problem. They put themselves before they put the Great Commission first. Heck, most believers nowadays don't even know what the Great Commission is. All of these people in Washington, none of them are statesmen. You know what separates a statesman from a politician? The statesman will sacrifice themselves for the good of the state, for the good of the people. And in this case, sacrifice their career, their wealth, their honor, even their lives. The pledge at the end of the Declaration of Independence. Those were statesmen because they backed it up. Some of them lost their wealth. Some of them lost their sacred honors. Some of them lost their lives. They signed that check that said up to and including anything I possess, including my life. And they cashed it for this nation. Nobody will do that anymore. Even our military is becoming corrupt. Our police. We have no heroes left anymore. Blaze Media by Cooper Williams on January 28th. I am going to kill Donald Trump. Smug Democrat candidate threatens death penalty in latest campaign trick. It's not a trick. Evil boasts. It's telling us what's going to happen. It says, I want to tell you what I mean when I say I'm going to kill Donald Trump. Well, let's go to John Solomon. Ohio Democrat Attorney General candidate says if elected, he'll kill Trump with the capital punishment. I'm going to obtain a conviction rendered by a jury of peers as a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt based on evidence presented at a trial, Elliot Forhan said. Then he's going to execute Trump. For what? If Trump has done something that vile, he needs to be impeached. This is evil. This is true fascism. Then we have this story from the Gateway Pundit. The left has a logic problem. even in the face of reality. It says new videos shatter the left's carefully crafted lie. Even as footage shows Alex Petty actively obscuring ICE operations and resisting lawful orders, liberals refuse to process reality, choosing emotion and mob outrage over facts and logic. People possessed of the mentality that we call leftism don't care about facts and logic. They have a form of logic. They're not irrational within their paradigm, their world, or their worldview. To those who see an objective reality and a capital T truth, yes, they are, by definition, insane. And that's why they're acting irrationally. But within their worldview, they're perfectly rational. They have a goal, and what they're doing makes sense to them. And that's why your logic is not going to reach them. They have given themselves over to a lie. They've created their own reality, and they're using reason within that own reality. If I make assumptions about the world is flat, the universe revolves around us, the sun revolves around us, et cetera, and then I can now use logic within those confines. Now, this is where fallacies come in. If you have assumed things that are demonstrably false, then your logic is going to lead to false assertions and conclusions. It's called a fallacy. Learning your fallacies are meant to help you avoid those mistakes. But if you do not care to check your assumptions, then you're still operating according to logic. That's why logic is neutral. I can prove anything I want. That's what these people are doing. That's why they think that those of us who still have some grasp on objective reality, they think that we're the ones that are evil because they have substituted what we think of as evil for good and what we think of as good for evil. They've flipped the paradigm on its head. And you cannot reach them because you're trying to teach a logic that in their world doesn't exist. You're the one, from their perspective, who's irrational. Now, how do you choose between the two? That's one of the ultimate questions of life. It's one of the things we have to decide. It's one of the purposes of our life, our goals. Which of the two is real? Is there an objective truth, an objective reality that exists outside of us, that's above us, that's beyond us, that's bigger than us, that just doesn't care about our existence? It still is, and it testifies for itself simply by being. Is there such a reality? And I'm not talking about the creator. I'm talking about the creation, the world in which we live. Now, I'm not asking you whether or not we can all perceive it as it actually is. I know we can't. But I'm saying, can we at least recognize that there are truths that exist outside of our will and control, and that we should conform to those truths, discover them, conform to them personally and in the way we live our lives and the way we structure and order our societies? What we call the left today, they still believe in a truth. Their objective reality is that there is no objective reality. Now, they do not understand that that is a self-defeating assertion. It proves that there is an objective reality. If you say that there is no truth, and you state it, there's no truth, you just stated you made a statement that's either false or true. It has to be true or false. And you just said that there is no truth. By using that sentence, you imply that there's also falsehood. And you stated a truth, that there is no truth. Seems confusing till you understand what it's actually saying. By saying there's no truth, you just proved that there is. The truth is there's no truth. That's a truth. You just defeated yourself. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a self-contradicting worldview. And from a self-contradicting worldview, anything and everything follows. A contradiction in logic is called an absurdity. We have a little saying, from an absurdity, all things follow. So if I tell you up is down and down is up, I can totally rewrite the world. I can do the inside out world now. Now you are in Stranger Things. And you can rewrite the world to your heart's desire. It doesn't change the world. You just created a little bubble in which you live. And those who are in the real objective world look at you in your little bubble, and we see that you are insane. The left is insane, given over to their depravities. They've lost it. You cannot reach them with logic. You probably can't even reach them with emotional appeal. As a society, we've come to the point where there's only one thing left to do. I look at history, especially the biblical history, and I see that every time something like this happened in the history of Israel, Yahweh, the Creator, wipes everything out and starts all over again with the faithful remnant. So barring his hand acting in human history this time again, man is not going to be able to save himself from what has gripped the globe. When we come back from the break, I want to talk to you. There is a philosophical name for what's going on. I want to talk to you about nihilism. We'll see you in 3 minutes. Welcome back. Let me just keep going. I don't want to hold you up too long with this. I just want to get at it. This is I put this in the Rumble comments. It's so that you have the reference to the link. This is a PDF. It's by Ash Shaikh Mir Azadullah Quadri, whatever. Nihilism and its effects on society today. I just want to read the abstract to you, or at least part of it. It says nihil means nothing, and ism means ideology. When these two words are joined, it means ideology of nothing or believe in nothing. Nihilism is a philosophy of moral and epistemological skepticism that became popular in the 19th century Russia during the early years of the reign of Tsar Alexander II. Currently, various forms of nihilism have been identified, like existential nihilism, cosmic nihilism, epistemological nihilism, metaphysical nihilism, mereological, moral nihilism, passive and active nihilism, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes into an account of these things. In a historic perspective, nihilism can be described as a belief that all traditional values have no foundation and that nothing can be known or communicated in this context. It is said that a true nihilist would believe in nothing. Nihilism negates existence in all formats and is often associated with pessimism and distrust. All right. Why do I want to bring that up? Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the microphone. Secular humanism in all its forms is nihilistic by nature. It asserts that there is no creator, there's no God. Man is his own God. Man makes up his own meaning in life, his own rules, his own sense of morality, his own everything. Each individual person. Charlie, you want to pop on here for a minute?
Yes.
Can you think of anything in the Bible that describes a time when everybody made up all the rules for themselves?
Yes, especially it's over and over and over again in the Bible. This phrase is used. They did what was right in their own eyes. But specifically, especially in Revelations, it looks back at the days of Noah, saying that everyone was doing what was right in their own eyes.
But that means every individual person, right? Or is that a colloquialism?
No, that's pretty much every person. Well,
Noah.
Yeah. Well, Noah, yes, with the exception of Noah, but
in those days, but in the future, in the prophecy, Yahweh also says that he will preserve a remnant for himself.
Yes. Well,
so remember, everybody had bent their knee to Baal except the 7,000.
Right. I mean, there's usually a remnant.
The whole world.
Right. Yes. You were right.
Yeah. It took me this is serious stuff, man. It took me a while to realize you're dealing with a Near Eastern and Eastern way of thinking.
That is true. That is true.
Hyperbole is part and parcel of their life. All right.
And they do, yeah.
Now tell me, how is the idea of everybody does what's right in their own eyes, how is that any different from what I see in the modern American left?
There is no difference. It's the same spirit.
How is that any different from a libertarian?
Same thing.
How is it any different from a modern professing Christian church?
Not much difference there either.
Modern conservatives.
There's some there that may, you could use that everyone term like you were just saying and say everyone, but there are a few in there that are not that way. So there is that remnant.
But the movement itself?
But most of it, the movement itself, yeah.
Why do you think all this is? It's a serious question. Why do you think this is?
Well, from what we've been discussing on the show and what is it? Thursday is our book study. Come join us on Thursday for our book study, because this really is looking at the world from the two different worldviews. And those of that mindset are from that continuous worldview that we've talked about, the pagan worldview, the view that everything is just interconnected and we're just a cog in this big wheel, rather than the transcendent worldview where there is a creator that exists outside of everything that exists, and he is our supreme leader, or should be, if we are aligning ourselves with them. And
Thank you,
that's,
Charlie.
but
No,
anyway,
go ahead.
yeah, but I mean, that's how, that's why this book study we're doing is so important to me, because when I was able to boil it down like that so simply, it just, I mean, you can take just about any subject now and put it before me, and I'm like, boom, okay, this is the right answer. Now, living out that right answer, that might be a different story, but I can tell you what the right answer is.
All right. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to step on you earlier. I wanted to hear what you had to say. Let me share something with you that, okay, Charlie, I'll get back to you. I want to share something else with y'all that it's also in the links. I haven't brought this up with anybody yet. Oh boy, this was sent to me by a pastor friend of mine in St. Louis area. It's a piece by John Steele, PhD. It says, Beyond the Culture of Nihilism. America's culture wars mask a deeper crisis, a shared nihilism defined by destruction and the will to power. How do we rebuild meaning through a restored sacred order? I'm not going to read the whole piece to you. I'm just going to scroll through till I get to this section right here, Recovering Sacred Authority. We're going to read this section. Every society needs a story that rises above personal preference. That's true. That's mythology in a sense. Without it, people become their own source of truth, and society dissolves into competing wills. Today, the modern creed is simple. You do you. But a culture grounded only in personal choice cannot endure. Freedom without form is chaos. Read that again. Freedom without form is chaos. Authority is not about domination. It is about acknowledging that reality has a shape. It means we live in a moral universe, one we did not create, with which we must align. We don't align it to us. We must align to it. The doctor continues. Modern people believe morality is a personal preference, but morality is not invented. It is discovered. It arises from the structure of creation, marriage, sexuality, identity, truth. All have meaning because the created world has meaning and design. Ethics has a metaphysical basis. We cannot rebuild authority with data alone. People live by stories. They trust what captures their imagination. They are shaped more by images than arguments. To rebuild authority, we must offer a compelling, beautiful, and true story about life. The rebuild starts with the imagination and often with artists. What he just told you is that the left wants to destroy this world so they can walk through the ashes a creator by rebuilding stories. This is why the left does not care about reason, facts, reason. They care about stories, stories with emotion, because it is more powerful to the human psyche, unless you are born again and have risen above and are now of the spiritual realm, what we would call the spiritual realm, the objective world, where you can see capital T, truth. Then you can master your emotions. But if you live in the realm of stories and emotions, the Apostle Peter says that you are nothing but unreasoning animals, good for nothing but to be led to the slaughter. A believer grounded in objective reality can handle both, because they can use logic and reason to decide, okay, now that is a story and it serves its purpose. It's our traditions in our society, but it is still a story. There is reason above it. Okay, now that's the difference between a true myth in which you accept that the story is real, even though you should know rationally that it isn't, and something such as the Bible, where your myth is derived from truth, something that actually did happen, real people, real events. That is a story based in reality, as opposed to a story based in whimsical fancy. Either way, your society has to revolve around the story. Its origin is everything. The doctor continues, this is why the Christian story is central. Rather than the simplified idea of believe so you can go to heaven, Scripture presents a grand narrative. God is actively restoring everything and calls his people to join him in that renewal today. Theologian N.T. Wright reminds us that Christian hope is not an escape from the world, but transformation in and of the world. Heaven is not a distant realm, but the power of God's future breaking into the present. On earth, as it is in heaven, is more than a prayer. It's our mission now. This creational story grounds authority. It explains who we are, why we exist, what life is for, and where history is headed. Without it, we drift into the emptiness of self-invention. That's the difference between a transcendent creator and those who hear his voice and respond to it, and the pagan. The pagan drifts in emptiness of its own or their own invention. That's what we call the left. They are pagan by definition. It says churches unintentionally weaken sacred authority by focusing on individualistic theory of change. Change hearts, change society. Get everyone to believe the same worldview. Focus on personal faith. Now, it might sound like you've heard me say these things. And it might sound like he's going to criticize what I've advocated to you, but I've also told you what's about to follow. So even without knowing that this gentleman had written this piece for years up until now, I've been explaining this to you as well. He says, but culture does not change one individual at a time. Culture is not the aggregate of individual choices. Culture is a normative, invisible reality, a separate thing, created through institutions, networks, symbols, shared imagination that define reality for all others in a manner that is largely taken for granted. Cultural change is not about mass mobilization, but reality-defining world-making. Most evangelical institutions and ministries in America have adopted an understanding of culture and theory of cultural change that is false and will fail. Churches must reclaim their role among the reality-defining institutions, academia, media, entertainment, and business, teaching not only scripture, but also the meaning of creation through story. The power of culture is the power to define reality. Our approach to reality is not to invent it, but to align ourselves to it as an authoritative object, cosmic order, which is the view assumed in scripture. He says to restore the vertical is to say truth is real and objective. Morality is not up for negotiation, but given. Identity is derived, not designed. And freedom is found in conscious alignment with God's design. This is the foundation of cultural renewal. It's a view that is radically counterculture. In other words, Genesis. The truth, objective reality of who you are, how you got here, the creation story, the purpose of man, morality, all of it told in story form, but claiming to be real people, real events, not in the actual past that we can access and identify, not in the unknown, unforeseen, unknowable past of people who may or may not have been true. It separates the Bible from myth. And it creates an authority that man rebels against. Human nature is to rebel against any authority over ourselves. You must choose. Are you going to do that? Are you going to recognize the authority of the Creator? Or are you going to get lost in the creation and decide that you are the only authority over you? I was a Marine. If we did not recognize the authority, not even of the people appointed over us, NCOs, officers, et cetera, not even the UCMJ or the chain of command, the ultimate authority over us in the Marine Corps was the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Creator. All of everything the Marine Corps stands for is built on that hierarchy. To the NCO above me, to the officer above them, to the officers above them, all the way up to the president, through Congress, the Constitution, well, the president, the Constitution, the Declaration, up to the Creator. It's a chain of command. It's a hierarchy. You'll find that hierarchy in your scriptures if you look, but you must submit to the authorities above you. Do you all remember the story in the scriptures where the centurion asks Yeshua the Messiah to heal his servant? And the Messiah says, okay, take him to me. And he says, why? You don't have to do that. Just give the word and it'll be done. You know, this is a Roman centurion. And he says, I'm a man under authority. I do what I'm told, and my people under me do what they're told. I'm used to giving a command and it gets done. I don't have to worry about it. So the centurion is saying, I trust you, Messiah. If you give the word, it'll be done. I know it'll happen. And the Messiah says, no greater faith in Judah. This Gentile has more faith, the faith that the Father's looking for, than all the Jews. Because he just says, I trust that you are Messiah, and if you say it, it happens. But we in our world today don't want any authority over us. Don't want the law. That's why that fight against ICE, that's what that is. That is a fight against the law. Why? They're trying to remake the world. Remember, you cannot say replacement theory. That's taboo on the internet. Gateway Pundit. It was their plan all along. Former Spanish minister celebrates replacement theory, replacing native Spaniards with migrant people. Now, they'll say that these are harder worker, but listen to what she's saying. I want to ask you, migrants and racialized people, please don't leave us alone with so many right-wingers. In Europe, the right wing represents traditionalism. Even if it's fascist or whatever, it still represents the monarchy and traditionalism and the rule of law. In other words, it represents an established order, an authority. So this lady says, and of course, we do want them, meaning the migrants. Of course, we have achieved papers for regulations already, and now we're going for nationality or to change the law so that they can vote. Of course, I hope for replacement theory. Hopefully, we can sweep right-wingers and racists from this country with migrant people, with hardworking people. Well, folks, those migrants are not hardworking. They're leeches. Even in Europe, they're parasites. They're parasitic by nature. They're living off of the welfare programs, which is exactly what the 12 people who wrote the Little Blue Book. I've read that to you before. It's over there on my shelf. It's what they said they were going to do. It's Cloward and Piven. It's meant to topple the society so that they can rebuild in the ashes, thereby proving they are a god. Everything I have taught you since I've tried to teach you, since I started this show, is coming together right now. I am in absolute awe of it coming together. Charlie, do you see it?
Big time. Do
you have anything to add to this?
Well, it's just like you said, it's crazy how all of this is just coming together perfectly. Like,
not just here, but in the world.
Yeah. Well, oh gosh, yes. Well, that's that too, because we ain't got much time left, guys.
No.
That's
AI
why.
will see to that.
That's why I think that what is happening with us here in the show and what's happening in the world is showing you that, Yahweh's about done putting up with this nonsense, and he's gonna send his main man to, do cleanup and set it all right. So And it ain't going to take long. I'm not saying it's going to happen, next week or anything like that, or even next year, but it's not very long. And
Before when he was probably still a halfway decent human being, Bill Cosby, when he started out as a comedian when he was really young, he had a skit about Adam and Eve. And he's pretending to be God in the, he goes, that's it, everybody out of the pool.
Yeah. I remember the one he did with Noah.
Yeah. Noah, what? How long can you tread water?
Tread water.
Yeah, I know. If you've never heard those old jokes, he was really genuinely hilarious without being overly vulgar.
Yeah.
But the point is, Yahweh is about to come and split skulls and sort sheep from goats. And he has to, if you're paying attention. But the question I want to ask Charlie's listened, I believe, to every show I've done so far.
Yeah.
And when Charlie first met me, he was not all that enamored with me. I know this, and that's okay.
Nope.
So now, Charlie, you've been with me long enough for me to convert you into my cult. So the only reason you agree with the way I see things is because I'm a cult leader, correct?
No, I hope not. At least I hope not, because I've been caught in that before, and I tread as carefully as I can because of that. But
well, I do something that Joseph Smith never told you to do. I tell you to go prove me wrong.
Yeah, and that's what it is. That's why I'm still here. Is that I've taken what you've taught and I've run this to ground as best I can. I'm not necessarily the greatest, but I can do a little bit of research. I've been trained. And when I put the pieces together, they fall into place and they make perfect sense. And when they do that, then I'm like, I think there's something here. Because
especially when they hold up against prophecy.
Right. And the reason I say that is Yahweh is a God of order. He's not a God of confusion. So that when things fit together as they are designed to work together, then I will accept that until someone shows me it don't fit, and that's the way I look at this. Now, it is possible, because I've been wrong before, that some of my premises may be wrong. And if they are, I could be off on the wrong path. I hope that's not the case. But if my premises are sound, then everything fits together. It's logical, it's coherent, and it fits until I find something better. So that's, I'm cautious with this stuff, and I try to, check this stuff as best I can. But, I look back at the last couple of years, and I've grown a lot. I believe in my faith and the strength of my faith and be able to defend my faith. And I think what we're embarking on here on this show and with We Who Are Lost this next year, if you come through with us and you really put a concerted effort in, when you come through on the other end, if you've done your studying and due diligence and paying attention and making sure that you're understanding what we're providing and asking questions if you need to for clarification and such, your faith is going to be rock solid. So that I don't know if it was John or Aaron, one of the two was talking about the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and their kind of faith and stuff. That's kind of faith you will have at the end of this, I'm hoping. Yeah, yes. There it is. Thank you. Oh, it was Sailor's son. Okay. Yeah, it was Aaron. I knew it was one of the sons.
Those three men said before they entered the furnace, those three men said, even if he doesn't save us, it doesn't matter.
Even if he doesn't save us, it doesn't matter. There's things that are more important than dying. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people that are, so bound up in themselves, death is this ominous thing that, they're trying to avoid at all costs. But for me, it's like, there's things more important than death.
I'm going to say something to y'all, and you better want to pay attention. If you claim to be a believer, if you tell yourself that you're a believer and you're afraid of death, a righteous death, a good reason death, you better check yourself.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. Because I'm dealing with some people in my life that, they're, I guess I'm broken, kind of like you in this way, is death
Welcome
does
to the
not
club.
bother me. I mean, it's like I've lost my parents and stuff like that, and I've got a brother that's on the brink of death right now. He's in hospice. Death doesn't bother me. Sure, I miss my parents and things like that, but that has never bothered me.
There's a
And
passage that just jumped in my head, Charlie.
it's
For
like,
the believer, death, oh, where is your sting?
yes, exactly. But for those that don't have that faith, it's devastating. And people, I've got people in my life that, they've, lost a child and stuff, and they're still mourning that years and years afterwards, and I can understand. I'm sure that would be a painful
Yeah,
thing. I
child,
don't
yeah.
know that would be difficult to deal with, but even so,
There's one of your proofs. How do you explain a believer is not worried about death? I mean, it doesn't mean they're not worried about it. It's just they're not afraid of it the way that a non-believer is.
right.
Say, well, one of you is you're just indoctrinated. Really? If you believe there's no afterlife, why are you worried about death?
Right.
That's actually an embrace.
Yeah,
That's
right.
sweet release. You're worried because there's a part of you that knows there is an
Yeah.
afterlife, there is a
Yeah,
creator, there's a
there's something
judge,
else
and
there.
you
Yep.
are out of alignment with him.
Yes. Yeah, right. Exactly. And I think, and I think that's probably what's behind all this is we inherently know that that's the case, but many of us refuse to accept it and such, and embrace it. So, yeah.
And that's the joy unspeakable. Amen. All right. With that, let's get out of here.
All right.
Folks, tomorrow we will finish up our setting of the table for our Genesis series. Tomorrow we are going to make some assumptions about the scriptures, the assumptions that we will be working from, that if our assumptions are correct, then we will be able to test Genesis and the Bible logically. Logically, that you can't scientifically test it. Maybe not scientifically, but I can test it logically. I can put it into the realm of logic and I can crunch the numbers on it. It'll all be based on whether or not the assumptions we set out tomorrow are true. If they are, then everything else that follows is valid. How are we going to prove it's true? The Bible will do that for us. You'll see. And then a week from tomorrow, Genesis 1:1. Wednesday, not sure what I'm going to be doing just yet. I have an idea, but we'll see what Yahweh wants me to do. Thursday, we're back in our book, The Bible Amongst the Myths. Friday, we start The Scepter and the Birthright. Oh, boy, am I looking forward to Friday's show. That is going to be a timely book study. So, that's the week ahead. Hopefully, I wasn't too depressing today. Hopefully, you learned something from the show today. That's my hope. I tried to keep myself calmer than what I'm feeling. I'm either going to rant and rave like Arlie Ermy as a drill instructor, or I'm going to seem a little bit like I'm kind of down in the funks like I am doing right now. So I didn't go Arlie Army on you. I went Eeyore. And I hope it worked. We love each and every one of you. We thank you for being here. If you like what we're doing, please, if you have not already done so, subscribe. That way you don't miss any content. Hit the bells, notification buttons so that you know whenever we schedule a new show. If you are not following on the blog pages, you'll find a lot of additional information there. The Road to Concord and We Who Are Lost, both of them .com. We're the Road to Concord.com, We Who Are Lost.com. That's the blog pages. Share the show. Tell people whatever you want about it. Set it up. Let them know that I'm an acquired taste. We don't mind. We know it's true. It's not just a shtick. And if nothing else, at least hit the like buttons. And if you are of a mind to do so, and you're able to do so, we would appreciate any help you can throw our way, one time or repeating. We ask that you buy us a $5 cup of coffee every month. There are some of you who do this. Thank you, brothers and sisters. There are some of you who do a great deal more. To those of you who know who you are, especially you big donors, we wouldn't be here without you. We'd have been gone a long time ago. But I do not think that your more is any more valuable than the person who gives me that $5 cup of coffee. And I hope you'll understand that. Because in some cases, that $5 cup of coffee might represent more of what they have than what you're giving. It's the widow's mite. And the reason I'm seeing it this way is I am trying to conform my understanding of the world with that of Scripture. And it's my hope and prayer that you'll understand as well. Anchovy ice cream. All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye-bye.